You please stand in your own place and ask the question. Mics are there. They will reach you.
Good evening, sir. This is Srihari from Smriti's Pathshala. So my question to you is that in your book, Hindus and Hindu Rashtra, you state that equality before the law is a key feature for a secular nation. The Uniform Civil Code was meant to ensure that one law for everyone has to be stated, but today it creates division. Many see it as an act and a step towards equality, while others fear it would undermine other religious privileges. Do you think bringing in the UCC now would really promote equality, or would it end up widening the gap between the communities? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. What is this gap amongst communities that we talk of? Should we allow discrimination in the name of diversity? No. The Uniform Civil Code is the ask of not just today. It was the ask of our forefathers who drew up the Constituent Assembly debates from there, the Constitution itself. It is there in the Constitution as a directive principle. It should have been implemented on day one. Leave alone it's not been implemented now. But the fact of the matter is, why shouldn't a country have a uniform civil code? It makes a mockery of justice. It is the most dividing thing in the world that when you have all humans being absolutely equal, and I speak as a scientist where not just humans, even chimpanzees, their genome is 99.4% identical to humans. I would call myself as a proud ape. And then in this day and age, we are having discrimination amongst human communities because we feel let them enjoy their customs and their practices. We should not trouble them. Whatever their customs and practices. If their customs and practices is to marry a 9-year-old, would you allow that? Would science allow that? If the custom is to marry 7 times, should our society allow it? At the altar of diversity, making peace, we are subjecting this country to pieces. But I'll tell you why even this government has blundered. Because this government has implemented UCC in Uttarakhand. UCC means, it's an acronym, Uniform Civil Code. By definition, it means a civil code that would be applied uniformly to everyone. But then why in that UCC in Uttarakhand, the scheduled tribes are exempt? And now the Muslims will use this as a defense. When the case goes or is heard in the Supreme Court, they will say, well, you can, in the name of UCC, implement it and yet exempt a community. Why shouldn't our community be exempted? So this is the fear of the state and the government, that they know what is the right thing to do. The right thing is to implement the UCC, but they don't have the guts to do it. Thank you. I hope I'm not criticizing the government. Professor has left. I hope he's not.
Students, please keep the question short.
Instead of trying to change all the laws to a particular way which you have been expecting, if the face of judiciary is going to be changed, directly will it not have an impact on the entire society? And most of the time I find the retired judges, they say the judiciary is corrupt.
Yes.
But none speak when they are in powers.
Yes, yes.
Is it possible for the face of the judiciary to be changed?
Yes.
I am Balaji Sridhar, advocate here.
You're an advocate?
Yeah.
Are you a retired advocate or are you?
I'm in the helm of my practice.
Thank you very much. No, what you said is absolutely true. And may I say, at the risk of offending some wonderful people who might be retired IAS officers or retired judges, why do they find their vocal cords only after they've retired? You know, this country would be run so much better if they found their voice while they were serving. But I suppose the machinations are such that they are also under the foot of our political establishment, especially the IAS and the civil servants. Because the moment you say something that offends a politician, you're immediately transferred. In fact, the common rule is the more honest you are, the more transferred you would be, which is why Kejriwal was never transferred. But anyway, the question that you asked has to be answered by the Prime Minister directly. And it is a tragedy of this country that 11 years have gone by, and one of the biggest election planks in 2013 was judicial reforms. When you had the NGAC that was passed and the Supreme Court overturned it, what was stopping you from at least talking to the Supreme Court and saying this is unacceptable? When the rest of us, when every segment of the society is elected democratically, either through exams or through merit or through elections, who the hell gives the judges the rights to not have that process for them? And look at the hypocrisy. It's not just there when they want democratically held elections for everybody except their own. When they want reservations in every stream except their own. They want 33% women reservations, they want SC/ST reservations, OBC reservations for every field, but not in higher judiciary. Why? This is the hypocrisy that needs to be exposed more than because our eyes are opened, sir. You opened your eyes, our eyes. But what good does it do if we don't have the power to act once our eyes are opened? And those who have the power to act, they are deliberately closing their eyes. When you have 53 million, more than the population of Kenya and South Korea, the number of cases that are pending. When in this same judiciary, you have only 20 judges per million Indian population. Forget about what the Judicial Commission has asked, for the Law Commission has asked. America has 155 judges to a million population. And despite having such low numbers of judges per million population, 30% of all High Court judicial positions are right now lying vacant. 21% of all judicial positions across India are lying vacant. There are cases, 120,000 cases are more than 35 years old. 2.25 lakh POCSO and rape cases are still pending. 71% of all Indian prisoners are under trials. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but the fact of the matter is this statistic that only I know? No. This statistics is known to the President, to the Prime Minister, to the Home Minister, to the Law Minister, and to the Chief Justice, who does a suo moto at the drop of a hat, but is quiet on all this. So I would want the thing to start from you, sir, at the risk of, at any risk that your law firm might face. You need to take this out. You need to take this out in the open and confront the politicians and the legislature directly. They need to do this change, not us. Thank you.
If the power of the review is changed, that the same judge should not review his own judgment, then it is bound to have a big impact on the judiciary. Because no judge is going to accept his own fault in the view. And after all, the power of review is given to him to review in his own chambers, and he passes an order confirming it. Why should we have such a law of power of review being given to a judge, the same judge? He is not going to accept it. If that particular change is going to start there, and if Supreme Court benches are going to be constituted in Calcutta, in Madras and Bombay, and all Supreme Court judges are transferred every year, definitely it is going to have an impact. We need not have the system in the change in law, but if such a position is going to come, bound to have an impact.
Very rightly said, sir, but that's a little bit technical as befitting your field. What I would say is look at the lowest hanging fruit. The lowest hanging fruit is that it is unacceptable for India to be vying for a Viksit Bharat and having right now 53 million cases pending. That is unacceptable. We need to address that first. At least bring the 20 judges per million population to 100. Make new courts. The government needs to step in massively. Right now, somebody was saying we spend only 0.6% of our GDP on the infrastructure, the judicial infrastructure. Unless we look into that, I'm afraid the wheels of justice are not just grinding slowly, they have come to a halt. Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
I'm Yamuna J, and we are the first year students of Amrita International School of Law. And yet to study constitutional law and jurisprudence principles in place. But with your permission, I want to ask a few questions.
Please.
In several judgments like Sabrimala, Shirur Mut, Ismail Faruqi, the courts have entered theological domains to decide what constitutes essential principles. Do you believe this doctrine itself is flawed or only the selective application?
Okay, that's a great question. And I speak as a layman. I'm not just a religious person or a lawyer. But whenever in quandary, I think the safest bet is to think of things, issues scientifically, not just with the scientific rationale, but to see whether there is some scientific rationale that has endowed us with this ability to think about this question. Let me give you two cases in point. The abortion limit. Now, that can be decided by society, but it should not be. When it comes to the health of a person, you have to look and go back to what the science tells you. And I'm proud that in our country, you have science dictating the abortion limit. It is 24 weeks now, or whatever. It may change from time to time. But at least you have scientific principles that are telling you, that have taken into concern the health of a person, where the judgment affects that person. Again, another case's point is right now, in fact, this debate going on to lower the age of consent for sex from 18 to 16. And you have lawyers like Indira Jaising and others, they're not bringing any scientific rationale at all. Their rationale is that in a changed society, now the time at which children reach puberty has decreased. By that logic, if two children who have attained puberty at 9, should we accept them to have sex at 9? This is no argument. You have to go back to what the science tells you, mentally and physically, the well-being of a person, and then come to these decisions. Likewise, when you talk about anything that is interfering or infringing on the religious aspect of a society, you make a judgment of that. I would say, yes, you need to. Supposing there is intense cruelty that a religion says is the norm of the day, should we sit quiet? If tomorrow, and this is, for example, Sharia law, you can have decapitation of your limbs as punishment. Should we say that, look, this is prescribed in a religion and our law should have nothing to do with it? No, I think that's wrong. I think basic human rights, basic human biology, basic well-being, mental state, physical state, has to be dictated by scientific principles, and we need to move ahead. Now let me come to Sabrimala, and I think this is one of the, I would say, not just tragedies, perhaps a strong word, but the fact that we accepted it without even any discussion. You had the Shah Bano judgment, right, which was an amazing judgment in not just that it advocated for a UCC to be implemented as soon as possible, but it gave the logical human rights back to the victim, Shah Bano. And then you had the Congress, in pandering to appeasement that the Muslims protested against it, it overturned the Supreme Court judgment. In Sabrimala, was it discrimination or was it perceived discrimination? You have many Ayappa temples where this law does not hold of restriction. This holds here because the deity is celibate and he wants only that prescribed window. And there are many temples where men are allowed entry, women are not. There are equally many temples where men are not allowed entry. So was this discrimination? When in a religion you have temples where women are not allowed and you also have temples where men are not allowed. This was not discrimination. And yet the Supreme Court adjudicated, and yet the pro-Hindu government, Hindutva government, did not overturn this judgment at all. But having said that, in the matters of where you say religion comes in, I am not an advocate for the law taking a back seat or judges taking a back seat, because there could be many draconian, barbarian laws that belong to a particular religion that must not be thrust upon the entire society. Thank you.
I'm audible, right? Yeah. I will keep my question short. So why do Hindus hesitate from talking about atrocities that happened on them?
Why do Hindus hesitate?
Hesitate, yeah. If we want to talk about it, people are not very comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that I think we only have ourselves to blame. But as I said, please remember that for 50 to 60 years, the end result is that we are hesitating to talk about the atrocities. But that has only come about because for 50 years we've been brainwashed into believing that those atrocities either never happened or that some other community was the victim, that we perpetrated atrocities. So our mind, our psyche, as I said, somehow self-loathing and brainwashing were seeped in. I'll give you a couple of examples. When you eulogize a barbarian that committed one of the biggest genocides of 4.6 million Hindus, when you eulogize that barbarian, you rename your cities and your streets after him, Aurangzeb. What else it is but the fact that you don't want Hindus to speak up on the atrocities? And I'm just talking about my experience. When I read the textbooks that I did, I was told that Emperor Ashoka, after he undertook the Great Kalinga War and you saw hundreds of thousands of people killed, he was so perturbed by it that he converted to Buddhism. That was the impression. I didn't even know, and I learnt it from Sanjeev Sanyal's book, that Ashoka was already Buddhist 4 or 8 years before he conducted the Kalinga War. This is the sense of brainwash, and where do you end? And then when you have a government where not just such textbooks are continuing, you had the education minister saying, I am proud of not having changed even one comma in such textbooks. Then who do you blame? Do you blame the author who is, spreading falsehood? Or do you blame the minister whose power it is, who has the power to remove those textbooks? That's the thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. And let me again, in fact, that's a very pertinent, that's a very pertinent question, because let me not always keep on criticizing the judiciary and the politicians and say he doesn't criticize himself. Let us throw the light back on us as well. And there I'd like to have a show of hands. How many of you remember or, can recall or know what the Azad Maidan riots were? You remember 2011, you had the Rohingya question. How many of you know that iconic photograph of a Muslim man kicking the Amar Jawan Jyoti, the Azad Maidan riots? How many of you know of that? Okay. How many of you, those who know about Azad Maidan riots, know about Khamong Sheikh? No one. So this is our fault. And we can't say that this was written in 1950s and 1960s. Khamong Sheikh was a place in Myanmar where the same Rohingyas for which riots happened to rehabilitate them, and 40,000 are in India right now. Khamong Sheikh is the place where the same Rohingyas perpetrated large-scale Hindu murder. They buried Hindu families alive. They killed them, butchered them. Many of those Rohingyas who did that might be in India right now. But we don't know of Khamong Sheikh. We know only of Azad Maidan riots. Now, who to blame? That's the question. The blame lies with us as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.